So good morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
So today we'll start with this topic, electrical properties. Now, some of the basic concepts we'll discuss, some of the points I have noted here. You have been taught about at plus 2 level, the electrical properties of materials to some extent. And here we'll just glance through all those basic points, and then some of the concepts we'll discuss slightly in detail, like energy bands in solids, then electron energy distribution function, conductivity calculations. Semiconductors, definitely you have studied in your electronic subject in detail, but still we'll just touch some of the important points. Then dielectric materials and their properties and their uses also. So these are some of the points we'll be discussing here. Now, some of the slides I'll just go fast because you know all this. Like the next slide. Electrical conduction, you know these basic law, Ohm's law and all that you have studied at plus 2 and also at your higher level. Then resistivity, conductivity, current density, all these equations you are quite well known. Then you know the concept of drift velocity of electrons and the related equations, electron mobility. Okay, so this equation sigma equals to NEU, you know this. Then drift velocity equation. Next comes the change of mobility as per how mobility depends on the temperature. Some points have been noted here, so you can just glance through these points. How current density is related to the mobility of negative charge and holes. These equations indicates that, and this will be applicable for when we'll be discussing about the P-type or N-type semiconductors. Now here is the slide which gives you some idea about the conductivity and the different classification of materials. You should have some idea, basic idea, like conductivity sigma in y-axis, and different materials have been shown. So on the higher side, the materials which are having the highest conductivity is like copper, aluminium, iron, steel, silver, and all that. The higher side. So these are some of the common materials with highest conductivities. So these are actually called the conductors, and normally these are metals. Then in between you have got some materials like germanium, silicon, and all that. So these are some of the materials which falls under semiconductors. And below that we have insulators like ceramic, glass, and all that. And this slide shows the range of conductivities for different materials, conductors, semiconductors, and insulators. So this will give you some idea about the quantified values of conductivity and the classification of materials based on electrical conductivity, metals, semiconductors, and insulators. Here are some values of conductors, semiconductors, and insulators of this conductivity. Same slide, almost same slide. Next point is the energy band in solids. We will slightly discuss in detail this part. You know what is energy band, you know conduction band, then the insulation band, prohibited band. So all these energy bands you know. So how these conduction bands conduction bands are developed, let us briefly try to see this with this example. As you know, You have studied in your atomic structure part in chemistry and physics that if you consider the energy level of an isolated atom, energy levels of electrons of an isolated atom, you will find that the electrons will have the discrete energy level. Discrete energy level, and as you will go beyond the nucleus of the atom, energy level increases, and at different subcells, you will have the different energy levels as shown in this diagram. Like at the electrons which are occupying 1s subcell, they will have certain energy level shown by this horizontal line, some value, and then the electrons which are having the 2s level and 2p, 3s like that. So these are all discrete energy levels of electrons of an isolated atom. Here we have taken one example, sodium, an isolated sodium atom. An isolated sodium atom. We are assuming that we have isolated one sodium atom, and we are trying to see the energy levels of electrons occupying different subcells. So obviously, at 1s level, since we have 2 electrons, so these electrons will have the energy level around somewhere something like that, and next higher energy level will be at 2s. So these electrons which are in the 2s subcells will have some energy level, and then also 2p and finally 3s. So total 11 electrons you have in a sodium atom, and accordingly they have discrete energy level. Isolated atom will have the discrete energy levels of electrons. Now let us see, we are trying to assume, although Na4 molecule is not possible, but we are considering hypothetically that 4 sodium atoms are brought closer and they are forming, let us say, one molecule. For simplicity, we are forming, considering this type of diagram, and we are interested in, we are interested in observing or thinking about how the energy levels of the electrons will get modified. So definitely it will not be same as the isolated atom, but it will be slightly different. The point is that the electrons which are occupying the outermost cells or subcells, their energy level will be first affected. So here, for sodium at 3s level, when you have got the 4 sodium atom, so at 3s level we have the total number of vacancy 8. Out of that 8, only 4 electrons are occupied here, so 50% occupation. So this, let us assume that these different lines, we are considering the 4 different lines because the 4 different electrons are occupying different energy level, and we are assuming that the energy levels of the electrons at 3s are not slightly, it may be slightly different. It is not exactly same, it may be different. So what will happen, these 4 lines, we are assuming that because of these different energy levels, these 4 lines we can think of, and if the number of sodium molecule atoms increases, then what will happen, these lines, instead of 4 lines, there will be multiple lines, and if the numbers are very high, number of sodium atoms coming closer becomes very high, then these discrete lines will be sort of pseudo continuous, or not, it will not be discrete, rather it will be a continuous band of energy. That is what has been shown in the subsequent diagram. So this is the energy band diagram. So in large number of electrons, in the left hand side you are seeing 1 atom, then these are the energy bands, 2 atoms, then these are the energy bands. But when you are taking large number of atoms, n number of atoms, so these discrete lines will not be separate lines, rather it will be a continuous, pseudo continuous lines, because the density of the lines will be very high, so it will be continuous, pseudo continuous. So these are the bands, actually we are getting the energy bands of different shells and subcells. So here, when you are considering in a solid, That means when large number of atoms are coming closer and forming solid, so what will happen that in the 3s band, which is half filled, it is half filled, so 50% of the space is occupied, and we are getting an energy band like this, which have been shown in blue color. So this is the idea of energy band. So this is another diagram for the sodium itself. Now the point is that this is another diagram. The point is that how the energy band of different electrons changes when we consider the distance between the atoms. That means suppose you are moving the atoms away from one another, then how the energy bands gets changed. This has been shown by this diagram. When the distances between the atoms or among the atoms are very large, then what will happen, as we have already told, that you will get the discrete energy levels of the electrons. But when the atoms are brought closer, what will happen? The outermost electrons will be affected, and their energy levels will not be same, and there will be the splitting of the energy levels of different electrons lying in the outermost cells. So here in this diagram we can see the electrons which are in the 3s level, their energy level will be splitted when they are at this particular the splitting will start at this particular distance. This is the distance at which the splitting of the energy levels will start. But beyond that, or when the distance is quite large, then you are getting a single energy line, almost the same energy level of the electrons. But when they are coming closer and interacting, what will happen? The energy levels of the electrons will get splitted, and this is the zone. So this is the energy level, 3s energy level at this. This is the 3s energy level, and out of that 3s energy level, only 50% is occupied. The 50% has been marked here. And further, if you try to bring the atoms closer, then the innermost cells or subcells will actually be splitted in terms of electron energy level. So splitting will be started slightly at lesser distance for the innermost cells. So this is the idea of this diagram. So from here also we get the idea of energy band. So these are some other diagrams also for S2, 2s or 2p subcells. This is another diagram. So these are all similar concepts. Here is another diagram which gives a slightly better idea about the energy band. So here from this diagram we can see that we have got the energy band like this. Some bands are conduction bands, some are valence band, and in between you have got the band gap. So this band gap plays an important role in terms of the conductivity of the material that we will see. So this is also another diagram for the energy band. So you know the idea of valence band, conduction band, and energy gap we will see in detail. So this is one idea of from silicon. For as you know, the silicon basically at room temperature or at low temperature behaves like insulator. It is because all the electrons of a silicon atom are actually bonded. There's no free electron, and they form a solid three-dimensional structure with no free electron, so no conductivity. But what happens when you raise the temperature in silicon? These bonded electrons absorbs energy, and it may so happen the bonding may be broken, and thereby some holes and these free electrons can be generated at high temperature. But at low temperature, this material, silicon, germanium, all these semiconductors actually behave like insulator, just like insulator, because normally at room temperature they do not have free electrons, or maybe very less number of free electrons, which in terms of practical it is not useful. So these are some of the notations we use, like EC indicates the lowest energy state of free electron in conduction band. Then valence band is the highest energy state for the field outer cells. Then there's a energy gap, the difference between EC and EV. So this band gap plays a very important role, and based on this band gap, we can actually classify the materials, whether it is semiconductor, insulator, or conductors, semiconductor, insulator, or other types of materials. So next comes a very important concept. This concept probably you have been told, or I don't know. Have you been told about this? Can you listen to me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
এই শুনতে পাচ্ছো কি কোনো রেসপন্স? I am not getting any response.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
হ্যাঁ স্যার শুনতে পাচ্ছি আপনাকে।
হ্যাঁ, what I am telling that, do you know this equation? Have you seen this equation earlier? So you know this, so let me explain briefly. So this is called Fermi direct electron energy distribution function. The idea, it is a very important function which actually tells you about the conductivity of different materials, and that can be evaluated. So this equation, which actually gives in this form, in this equation has been written like f of the function. This is basically a function of energy level E. So this is equal to small n divided by capital N, and this is right hand side one expression is there, 1 upon 1 plus this quantity is written. Let me first explain the different terms here. E indicates the energy level of the electron, of a particular electron. F indicates the Fermi level. We'll see what is Fermi level. Then K indicates the Boltzmann constant. T absolute temperature. Capital N is the total number of available electrons, and small n is the number of electrons promoted above the Fermi level. What is the significance? Let us see, and how this nature of this function looks like with reference to different temperature. So, and also at different energy level. So the nature of the function is something like this. If we take in the x-axis the energy level of electrons and the value of this function, we'll get sort of something like this type of equation. So there is and with reference to temperature, this function actually changes. So if you consider a temperature, let us consider a temperature T equals to 0 K, or absolute 0 temperature, and we are trying to see the nature of this function. If the energy level is greater than EF, Fermi energy, we are trying to see what is Fermi energy level also. If the energy level is greater than EF, Fermi energy level, then this expression becomes 0. And if E is less than EF, then this expression becomes 1. So clearly it becomes a step function. So here slightly this graph has been modified. We have taken this E in y-axis, and the value has been taken in a function of the functional value has been taken in the x-axis. So the curve looks like this, or it is completely a step function. So this value. So here let me further explain that basically this function gives the probability. So probability means, let us say we have got capital N number of available electrons at absolute zero, and if we raise the temperature, if we increase the temperature above this absolute zero, it may so happen that some of the electrons will absorb energy, and they will be at higher energy level. And here comes the idea of free electrons. Actually, the electrons which will have the energy level above the Fermi energy level are actually called the free electrons, and they are actually, they take part in as charge carriers. So that is the concept of free electron. The electrons which are having the energy level above the Fermi energy level are called the free electrons. So what is Fermi energy level? That we'll have to understand here. So we can understand from this graph also. So we are getting, so if EF at this particular value, EF is the Fermi energy level, and we are taking at absolute zero, the electrons which will have energy level above this Fermi energy level, they will have the let me explain it in some other diagram. This diagram is, so let me explain Fermi energy level is by this equation. So Fermi energy level, we can, if we write this energy level of an electron equals to EF, and we try to replace this equation, then we will get a value of half or 50%. So this indicates that the probability of our electrons to occupy the Fermi energy level is 50%. That means the chance that an energy level will be occupied by the electron, if it is 50%, then that particular energy level is called the Fermi energy level. I'll just, so the function indicates the quantity F indicates the Fermi energy level, it represents the this. So occupation probability, basically it gives the occupation probability. So if the if occupation probability of an electron to occupy a particular energy level is 50%, then that particular energy level is called the Fermi energy level. It has got some more definitions also. This diagram will further explain in a better way, because this diagram gives you a representation of the graph or the function for different temperatures. So if we consider that absolute zero temperature, as we have seen, it will be a step function. So at 0 K, it is a rectangular shape of this thing, and if E is less than, if E energy level is less than EF, then we are getting this probability as 1, and if at absolute zero, that means no electrons, there will be no electrons above the Fermi level. So all the electrons will be occupying the energy level below the Fermi energy level. So that is why the graph is something like this. But if we increase the temperature, beyond zero, then what will happen? Some of the electrons which are having energy level below this Fermi energy level will absorb some energy, and they will go beyond this Fermi energy level. So the energy level of those electrons will be, higher than this Fermi energy level, and those electrons will be called as free electrons, and they will be the charge carriers. So as you increase the temperature, the number of electrons that will be promoted beyond the Fermi energy level will increase, and thus the conductivity will also increase. So you can see here, as the temperature is increased, the shape of the graph actually becomes, not like step function. It becomes a continuous function, and this particular area beyond this in this curve indirectly indicates, this particular area indicates the number of electrons that are this area is proportional. This area is proportional to the number of electrons that are going beyond the Fermi level, or number of the free electrons. So this part has been explained. If you see the book by Callister, that has been explained in a better way, this concept, how this area is proportional to the number of free electrons. So this area indirectly indicates the number of electrons which are beyond the, or conducting electrons, charge carriers. So this is another way of representing. So if you increase the temperature, this graph shifts towards this in this direction, as it has been shown in this diagram. So this is almost same diagram that has been shown. So this is another way. This is all the same diagrams. So that is what I was telling. This is, let's just see this slide. This is for a temperature above absolute zero, for some non-zero temperature. So at absolute zero, as we have seen, that this becomes a step function, but at some higher temperature it becomes a continuous function, something like this. So here we see that there is of course a band gap, and the position of this Fermi function lies at the mid value of the band gap. So at the below this we have got the valence band, and let us consider we have got a band gap here, Eg. This is the conduction band and valence band. So at absolute zero, almost all the electrons will be in this band. Let us say there will be no electrons to conduction band, and as you increase the temperature, what will happen? The electrons from the conduction band will absorb, valence band will absorb the energy, and if band gap, the Eg value is not that comparatively less, then these electrons actually will try to jump or cross this energy barrier, and they will go to the conduction band, and thus they may be the free electrons. So they will have the energy level beyond this Fermi level, so they will be free, and they will act as charge carriers. Now the point is that this is the area that has been shaded here. So area is proportional to the number of electrons that we are getting here on the higher side, and this will be equal in case of insulator. For semiconductor, of course, it will be different, and for semiconductors, different types of semiconductors, this position of this Fermi level will be not exactly at the mid value of the Eg, but slightly it will be shifted because of some difference in the numbers of holes and the electrons. Since here, in case of in a pure semiconductor, let us say this is a pure semiconductor, the number of holes and the electrons that will be created, they will have the same value. So here the holes will be created here in the valence band, and in the conduction band we will have the free electrons. So that is how, this is the idea about how this function, Fermi function, will give you some idea about the conductivity of the material. So since this area is proportional number of electrons, and number of electrons is proportional to the conductivity of the material, so indirectly this area actually indicates the conductivity of the material. So here is one, just to give you one idea how this Fermi function will give you the idea of conductivity of the material and how this can be related also with the energy gap. So we are trying to have an idea how this number of electrons, small n, which are becoming free, changes with reference to the energy gap. So we are taking here three extreme material. One is diamond, another one is silicon, and another one is artificial semiconductor. This is indium antimony. So INSB, indium antimony. So this is an artificial semiconductor. The point is that the energy gap is quite low here, 0.17 electron volt only. And silicon, we know 1.07 for pure silicon, it is 1.07 eV. And for diamond, it is about 5.6 electron volt Eg value. So we have taken three material here: diamond, silicon, and some artificial semiconductor. And we are trying to see what is the probability. We are trying to calculate the probability that an electron will jump from conduction band to the from the valence band to the conduction band. So first we are taking the example of diamond. So since diamond has got 5.6 electron volts, so we can calculate this E minus EF, and that will be Eg by 2. So we are getting 2.8, and at room temperature, means 25 degrees centigrade, we are getting the absolute temperature 298. So if we put these values in this equation, then we are getting some value. It is 4.58 into 10 to the power minus 48. Now point is, what is the significance of this value? Now if you look at this value is a very, very small value because of this quantity 10 to the power minus 48. What does this indicate? This value indicates the probability. Probability means small n divided by capital N. So out of this possible space or electrons, n number of electrons, capital N number of electrons, only small n number of electrons will go beyond the or will go into the conduction band from the valence band. So this is the chance. Now if you look at this value, this is a very, very small chance, that an electron from the valence band will go to the conduction band in case of diamond, because it has got a very large, comparatively very large energy gap. So probably no electron will move from valence band to conduction band. So that is the idea that this numerical value gives. Now what we are going to do, we are just seeing this chance or this value, Fe value, functional value for silicon. So when we are replacing this value, we are taking this Eg value as 1.07 and putting this value here, we are getting this value as 4.39 into 10 to the power minus 10. So if you compare these two values, the value that we have got for diamond and the value that we have got for silicon, there is, if you consider this ratio, it is around 10 to the power 38. 10 to the power 38 times the chance that increases, that is 10 to the power 38 times, which is a very, very high quantity. And that is why in case of silicon, the chance that the electron will move from valence band to conduction band is 10 to the power 38 times more compared to time on. That is the idea we are getting from these two calculations. Next, we are taking another example, some artificial semiconductor whose EZ value is 0.17 electron volt. Now, if we take this 0.17 electron volt and put this value for the same temperature, we are not changing the temperature. You see, we are getting this value around 2.42 into 10 to the power minus 2, which is again, it is much more larger, around 10 to the power 8 times, 10 to the power 8 times larger than your silicon. Now the conclusion here is that in case of, if we take silicon as semiconductor and we try to actually use it for different applications, at room temperature, you will not get sufficient number of free electrons, and it will be treated as insulator. Now, even if you raise the temperature, but still the number of electrons or the charge carriers will not that much, which will be actually practically used. That is why we go for artificially manufacturing the different types of semiconductors, extrinsic types of semiconductors like N-type, P-type, so that we can get large number of free electrons at room temperature. That is the limitation of this. So point is that if we can reduce the energy gap, from to some extent, then we can get huge number of free electrons at room temperature itself. So say for example, for this particular artificial semiconductor, since energy gap is only 0.17 at room temperature itself, so you'll get a large number of free electrons, or the conductivity of the semiconductors will be much higher compared to your other types of semiconductors. So that is why, that is the idea of developing the new type of semiconductors artificially, and so that we can reduce this energy gap and we can use the semiconductors more effectively. So this is the idea from this problem that I want to explain to you. So this is about the part one. Next we are going to the another slide. So this just so classification of materials based on energy bands we have already discussed, and this classification we can have this. So in case of insulator, as we know that there's a, like diamond, we had a very huge gap around 5.6 electron volt between the conduction band and valence band, and that is why it is quite impossible to take electron from valence band to conduction band. Just or thermally we cannot activate this electron to go to this, to cross this energy level. In case of conductors, what happens is that valence band, conduction band sometimes overlap, and already the conduction band, some of the electrons are already in the conduction band, so they act as the charge carriers, like But in case of sodium, the case is different. In the conduction band itself is half filled, so that is why there are some space in the conduction band itself, and the electrons in the conduction band, they can move. They have the space to move around. So that is why sodium is conductor. In case of semiconductors, what happens? This band gap is quite less, so we can easily promote some of the electrons from valence band to conduction band thermally, or but some other ways, like we can perform the doping and all that to create artificial N-type and P-type semiconductors, and we can increase the number of charge carriers. So here are some ideas. regarding the uh, band gap, and also the position of the Fermi energy level has been shown here in case of different types of materials here. The left hand side you have got the insulator, and then we have got the band gap here. So the Fermi energy level is at the middle. And in case of semiconductor also, the energy gap is low. But the Fermi energy level is at the middle value. And in case of conductors, the Fermi energy level will be somewhere in between. So there are some equations for that which can be related. If we know the values of this conduction band value and valence band energy value, this can be calculated from here. So these diagrams are same diagrams. So this you can just go through. Then semiconductors, just briefly we can see, basically it can be divided into two categories: intrinsic, extrinsic. In case of intrinsic type, which is also known as pure, they have got certain limitations so far as the number of charge carriers are concerned. That is why we perform we apply some other techniques to increase the number of charge carriers. And one of the process is the doping. Doping is a process by which we can deliberately add some materials into the intrinsic semiconductor to increase the number of charge carriers. These things you have already studied. Here are some of the artificial semiconductors and also intrinsic semiconductors here. So we have got some pure semiconductors like silicon and germanium, as you know, but there are compound type of semiconductors which can be artificially manufactured. Some of these examples are gallium arsenide, then indium antimony, cadmium sulfide, then this is one tin tellurium. So this is also these are some of the examples of artificial type of semiconductors. Now, intrinsic semiconductors, so far as silicon is concerned, we have already discussed about how this 3D structure is formed by silicon atoms, where we do not have any free electrons. All the electrons actually are used to form the valence band. So these are the diagrams which we have already studied some of the. So here what happens if you increase the temperature, as you know that some of the bonds may break and we can get some free electrons, not in large number but comparatively less. And so as you increase the temperature from absolute zero, the semiconductors tend to become conductors because you are getting the free electrons. So these are some of the diagrams you can just see. So here the conductivity calculation can be used in order to calculate the conductivity of intrinsic semiconductor, pure semiconductor. We can use this equation. Here the point is that the electron mobility and hole mobility are just different. Otherwise, the number of charges, both holes and electrons, are same. So the equation can be written like this: sigma equals to Ne. This quantity remains constant, and mu is the electron mobility, and mu h is the hole mobility. So this equation can be calculated, can be used to calculate the intrinsic and the conductivity of the intrinsic semiconductor. Here is one example for this calculation. Now, conductivity of intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor. There are some manipulations here. If we just use the equations and try to incorporate in this equation, sigma equals to n, the number of negative charge carriers into charge into their mobility, and if it is different, then it will be for extrinsic semiconductor. But for intrinsic semiconductor, all these values are same, and if we put these values, after some calculations, we get one expression, and this expression can generally be used to calculate the conductivity of intrinsic type of semiconductor, like sigma equals to sigma naught into e to the power minus Eg by 2k T. So this is the equation. So this equation can be readily used to perform all sorts of calculations, and also we can determine the energy gap. Once we know the conductivity, we can definitely measure the conductivity at different temperatures, and if we get some values, some data points, we can definitely calculate what will be the conductivity, what will be the energy gap for a particular type of semiconductor. So this equation is very important. And for extrinsic types of semiconductor, another important equation is here, this equation. So this is how the conductivity equation is for silicon, and there is a graph between the temperature and the carrier concentration that can be calculated. So from this equation, we know that carrier concentration Ni is proportional to this. So this is the nature of the graph. So you can just see this graph. So for intrinsic semiconductor, as you have seen that there is a gap, energy gap. There is a on the energy level, the lowest level of the conduction band and the highest level of valence band. This gap, this energy gap is called the energy gap, and we have got the position of Fermi energy level at the middle. So on the right hand side, it shows the Fermi function also, the Fermi function at a temperature above absolute zero. So this is the same diagram we have taken. Next comes the process of doping. So doping and all that, you have studied how to how to dope to get the N type or P type semiconductor, that you have studied this periodic table, because silicon, the 4A, silicon and germanium are the main two semiconductors. We can dope with P and AS also, ASB also. Then we can dope aluminium with silicon, gallium with arsenic, something like that. Gallium arsenide, we have seen one type of semiconductor. So we have seen indium antimony also. So there are different types of combination can be performed to get different types of artificial semiconductors. So normally boron, phosphorus, arsenic, these are actually used. So this is the N type. N type, in order to get N type semiconductors, we dope phosphorus, and since phosphorus is pentavalent, we get one extra electron per phosphorus, and thus we get N type semiconductors. And when you are getting the N type semiconductors, what happens? The energy level, the donor energy level, actually gets shifted towards the upper side. And this is called the donor energy level. And this is left hand side shows the intrinsic semiconductor, but when you are performing some doping, then the donor energy level gets shifted towards the higher side, and so the Fermi energy level also gets shifted towards the higher side. So what happens, since now the energy gap is much less, so the electrons will have much less energy band to cross to go to the conduction band, and that is why we get quite large number of free electrons if we perform this doping. So this is another diagram which shows that this is the energy level, lowest energy level of conduction band. We have got the energy Pg energy gap, and we are performing the doping. So the donor energy level gets shifted towards the higher side, and thus the ED becomes this is the donor energy level, and so this difference EC minus this value actually is the ED. This is the difference. So this difference is quite less, around 0.044 electron volt, which is quite less. And so just by applying some small amount of thermal energy, or even by electric field, just by applying some electric field, these electrons can be taken from this energy level to the conduction band, and this can be made free electron, and they can act as charge carrier. So this is for N type. As you have seen that Fermi energy level also gets shifted towards the higher side. So there is a slight difference in the Fermi function. So next comes the extrinsic type of semiconductor, where here shows the P type of semiconductor. When we are doping with boron, we are getting large number of holes here, and here the acceptor energy level gets shifted towards the lower side. So this becomes the acceptor energy level, and so this is basically the acceptor energy level. That means this is the energy level of the holes, and what happens, that means these are the holes created, and the energy level is quite less, and from below, from valence band, electrons will try to move from lower side to fill the to combine with the holes. So there will be some movement. So this is the idea. So this energy gap is also quite less. So this makes this actually shows the large number of holes here, and so this actually, when these electrons from the valence band move, so definitely this electron, when it is moving from valence band, then another hole will be created. So that is how there will be the movement of the holes. So this is the idea of P type of semiconductor. This is another diagram which will show how this P type semiconductors are formed. So this actually, the hole that has been shown diagrammatically on the right side, the energy level has been shown by this dotted line. So the energy level gets shifted towards the lower side near the valence band. So this is so the Fermi function shifts towards the lower side, and the Fermi energy level also shifts towards the lower side. There are some typical values of EDEA for silicon and germanium, and for different dopants. These are some of the values which will give you the ED values, the energy gap. When we are doping P, we are getting the gap only 0.044 or 45. So this is only a very small fraction of energy which the electrons to be has to cross, and this energy can be very easily provided to the electrons, and thus we can increase the number of electrons to a large extent. So there are some more diagrams here for pure intrinsic type, N type, and P type also. So these are some of the equations which will help us to calculate the resistivity of the material. These are the resistivity of the material when they are, or you can say the resistivity of alloys. The total resistivity can be, there are other components resistivity. So this is the equation I was telling. This equation can be used for intrinsic type of semiconductor to relate the conductivity, energy gap, and also temperature. So this is the equation which can be used to calculate the energy gap. So in this equation, what we get is that if we can measure the conductivity at different temperatures, we can get a set of readings, and if we feed that line, we can get the slope of the line as minus Eg by 2k will be the slope of the line. So from that slope we can actually calculate the value of Eg. So that is the idea. So when you'll have to draw a graph between ln of sigma and 1 by t. So from that graph you can get. So these are all calculation part which can easily be done once conductivity at different temperatures are measured. So Eg can be easily calculated. So this is another diagram known as Arrhenius plot of conductivity and reciprocal of absolute temperature. So this diagram has got 3 parts. One is called left hand side. This part is for intrinsic semiconductor, and on the right side you have got the extrinsic semiconductor, and in between you have got the exertion donor region. That means here the conductivity doesn't change that much. There will be there may be some slight slope. So this is another diagram which shows how the conductivity changes with temperature for different types of semiconductors, intrinsics and extrinsic semiconductors. This is a better diagram. So these are the 2 slides I thought of sharing with you. The next day we'll continue from this point. The next day we'll discuss about some of the electrical properties like dielectric properties, piezoelectricity, ferroelectricity, and all that, and their uses and their applications of some of the piezoelectric materials. So okay, so today we'll stop here, and I'll send these 2 slides to PPTs to your mail. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So what
Thank
I
you
will
so
do,
much.
I will